Now tonight we're actually going to get involved in some of the current issues that are going on and see if you actually are up on what is going on. You know, the question that I have is, are we really up on, the information? When you hear sound bites that are given out by different individuals out in the media, are you sure that you're getting the right information, or are you being fed sound bites that just simply give you pieces of what is really going on? I want to let you listen to some of the things here that Jeremiah Wright says. Now, this is Obama's pastor, in case you don't know. He's an individual who is very controversial, and probably you've heard some things about him. But tonight I want to give you some things that maybe you have not heard and help you to recognize if there is a reason why the media has so quickly allowed this gentleman to separate himself from Obama. And the reason I'm asking that question is it the case, is it really the case that this separation should have taken place? You know, if you pay attention now, this is what I'm basically getting to. If you pay attention, as a result of Mr. Wright, this so-called Reverend Jeremiah Wright, coming on the National Press Club, where you saw the blue behind him and everything. This is actually one of his sermons at his place of worship. After he came on the National Press Club and really people started getting a listen to what he said, the media has actually allowed him to separate, they've actually allowed Obama to separate himself from Jeremiah Wright. Now, really, in fact, they are joined, and they ought to continue to be joined, and I wish that Obama would go ahead and stay with some of the stuff that he's saying. But one of the reasons I believe the media has allowed Obama to get away from him, and this is not politics tonight, this is actually what we're going to talk about, is we're going to talk about state of affairs, reality. I believe the reason the media has allowed this man to be cut from the political scene is because some of the things that he's actually saying are resonating with the media. In other words, they're actually seeing that some of the things that he is saying possibly could be true, and they don't want to hear that. You see, we do not want to hear anything about America that is actually negative. Many of the things that he said about what's going on overseas in other countries, we don't really want to hear that we're doing anything wrong, and it is similar to our society in regard to religion. There's actually a new movie out. Are they going to get the movie up here, Brian? Ben Stein's movie, Expelled?
I don't know, but not 100% sure.
All right. Now, Ben Stein, I should have brought this up. Ben Stein's the guy that talks real slow. What is he actually famous for? What?
He used to have a show, When Ben Stein's Money, does the Visine commercials.
Okay. Let me just...
He's a scholar of sorts.
All right. Let me just go ahead and get a Ben Stein shot right quick. I don't think this is going to hurt us. It might. I might not be able to do that. I was going to go ahead and get a Ben Stein because I really just now have thought about that. We really want to promote this movie. He actually does an expose on the atheists. Richard Dawkins that I had up not too long ago. He has Richard Dawkins, the chief atheist in the whole world. He's actually called Darwin's bulldog. And Ben Stein has him on there. And Ben Stein's conclusion, I heard it last night on one of the news shows, is that these atheists are just persons who live in a little bitty box, and they're scared to death that there is a God because they don't want to be judged one day. And he says, now, we're saying our producer here tonight actually knows of Ben Stein to be a scholar of sorts. He is a very well-known individual, and I want you to write it down if you haven't already. The movie is called Expelled, and it is actually showing what is going on in the world today with the atheists and what they really want and what they're trying to accomplish. I'm loving it. I am loving it. Finally, some well-known author, well-known figure, Hollywood figure. Ben Stein has actually been on, he's had a news program, as we just mentioned, about you and your money. He's somewhat of an economist, evidently. And Brian, if you actually find something on him and want to flash it up on the screen, that's fine. And we'll be looking for that. But let's listen to some of the things that this man is saying. And then tonight I want to get some comments and let you make some comments as well.
bombed Iraq. We killed unarmed civilians trying to make a living. We bombed a plant in Sudan to pay back for the attack on our embassy. Killed hundreds of hard-working people, mothers and fathers who left home to go that day not knowing that they never get back home. We bombed Hiroshima. We bombed Nagasaki. And we nuked far more than the thousands in New York and the Pentagon. And we never batted an eye.
Now, you know, one of the things that's actually happening is that some individuals are basically saying that everything this man says about America, he's just a nut. And here's the reason why they've said he's a nut. When he made the conspiracy theory about the United States actually introducing AIDS into the black community, all of a sudden that was kind of over the top. I have no idea about any facts about that. I just know that once he said that, everything else that he said was completely put aside. But folks, what we need to realize is it might be possible tonight that some of the things that are actually being stated are actually factual. And what I want you to do tonight is I want you just to, you don't have to agree with a word I say. All I'm asking you tonight is consider some things in the Bible times when the Old Testament prophets were, and I'm not saying he's a prophet, I'm just saying if you wonder what's going on in the United States today, I want you to consider some things that some prophets were saying, and I'm going to give you the political atmosphere that was going on in the days of these prophets, and you see if you can't find any similarity in today's world. And folks, we may need to get a handle on today's world. I heard a report, actually I heard Charles say it today, that he had read on the Drudge report that gas would be $10 a gallon. Well, hey, I lived in a country where gas was $5 a gallon, 2003, what would that be? 5 years ago, gas was $5 a gallon in that country, and that country is actually a protectorate of the United States. And so for them to hear $5 a gallon, today for us, they're saying, but what's the big deal about that? I'm sure it's already $7, $8 there. Malachi 2:13, and this have ye done again, covering the altar of the Lord with tears, with weeping and with crying out, insomuch that he regarded not the offering any more, or receiveth it with good will at your hand. Now, here is basically Malachi saying that the altar of God is so covered up with atrocity that God's not listening. He doesn't want to hear anything you have to say. Yet you say, wherefore? You know, when God has His prophet or His spokesman say, look, you really, the activities that I'm seeing in your land are atrocious. And the people say, well, why do you say that? How dare you say that America has done anything wrong? Wherefore? Why do you say this, God? Why are you having Malachi say this? Because the Lord hath been witness between thee and the wife of thy youth, against whom thou hast dealt treacherously, yet is she thy companion and the wife of thy covenant. You know, divorce today in the United States, 1 out of 2 marriages ends in divorce. Individuals do not care. They don't care anymore about the vows that they made. Did you see the whole affair that I put forth about Bill White? Well, we have one coming. I'm going to actually get Bill White to comment on another atrocious affair that took place right here. And you might be saying, right here? Yeah, right here. Well, right here? Yes, right here. That's coming up. Not on this broadcast, but soon. And see, this is what's going on right here in America. And a lot of our community, they're saying, well, why would God be upset with us? And a lot of people in our community, while this fiasco was going, in which I was actually exposing certain things that was going on at BTW and exposing Bill White, a lot of people in the community was calling up and saying, oh, Bill, you're a wonderful man. Okay, we want to put up Ben Stein just for a moment. Let's go backwards to that. And we want you to see this individual is, you know what, you don't have that trailer, do you? Okay, all right. Well, we want you to know, it's actually, I think it's out right now. And from what I'm hearing about this movie is Ben Stein is basically laying forth what's going on around you. Now, folks, I've been saying this, and a lot of times people don't put stock in what someone says who is local. Go to your theater, keep your eye on the theater, and see this movie, because he is actually showing you what is going on in the atheistic community, what their agenda is. And I'm telling you what their agenda is. Their agenda is to move God out and basically make it that we came from gorillas, we came from the Natural History Museum, we came from natural events, and that you're no more than just a piece of nature yourself, and basically that means you don't have a soul, and the person that got shot over there doesn't have a soul, and it really doesn't matter in the scheme of things. You were just a piece of dust. You're just going back to the circle of life. You remember that movie with the little lions and what have you, Lion King? That's what that was all about, the circle of life, you know. The lion kills something and it goes back into the dirt, and the dirt comes up with grass, and you know, the antelope eats the grass, and then the lion eats the antelope again. It's the circle of life, and you see we're in the circle too, according to them. So this is very important. All right, let's go back to our screen now. Basically, this is the prophet Malachi saying this about this particular time frame, Malachi 2:7. Then he says, "You have wearied the Lord with your words. Yet you say," the people are saying back to God, back to His prophet, "Wherein have we wearied God? How could we possibly weary God? When you say everyone that doth evil is good in the sight of the Lord, and He delighteth in them, and He delighteth in them, or where is the judgment of God?" You see, that's basically what's going on today. When I talk about the things that are going on in this community, when I show you the fraud, the ungodly behavior, the introduction of anything you want to call religion and claiming that it comes from God, and how that God is upset with that and He's going to punish people, and you say, well, why have we tired God out? Well, here's why. It's because you call every kind of evil good in the sight of the Lord. When you say America is good, folks, we need to wake up. What's going on? How bad do you have to get before we've become a nation that tolerates evil and calls it good? Homosexuality is everywhere. You cannot let your little children go to the bathroom by themselves in America today. Let me ask you to think about it. And let me ask you, and let's just warn you, are you a parent who's not careful and will send your 4-year-old boy or girl or 10-year-old boy or girl to a bathroom? Don't you do it in Greensboro, because in Greensboro, it is known in Greensboro that if you send a little kid to the bathroom, there's homosexuals in there and they're peeping. They're looking at our little children. That's America. We're in the fight right now to legitimize same-sex marriage. That's America. We are killing. It's just unbelievable what goes in America. And people say, well, why hasn't God destroyed America? Well, it could be, if you watch, that God's in the process of dismantling America. Our jobs are gone. Our jobs are leaving at a pace that's alarming. Our gas is now going up to the point where hardly anyone is able to drive those vehicles that we drove 10 years ago. Our groceries now are going up at an alarming rate. You're hearing things like Costco and Sam's Club is actually putting a limit on the amount of food that you can buy, food hoarding and things of that nature, folks. Well, where's the judgment of God if we're so bad? What is going on right now? We're basically in a position where the largest banking institution in the United States just went bankrupt or just went broke. And how did it go broke? It went broke, folks, just exactly like things went broke in the Great Depression. People were standing at the bank saying, we want our money because we're scared it's not going to be there. And the biggest, one of the largest financial institutions in the United States went to the ground in one day. Now, folks, it may be a time that we need to ask ourselves a question. Well, Isaiah was a prophet at the same time as Malachi. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me, God asked, saith the Lord? I'm full of your burnt offerings of rams and fat of fed beasts, and I delight not in the blood of bullocks or the lambs or the he-goats. When you come to appear before me, who hath required this at your hand to tread my course? Well, you know, I hear the preachers in Martinsville say, well, look at us. We've got big churches. Jackie Poe said, yeah, we're building millions of dollars and we're still building on. Well, you know, could it be the case that God's saying, why? What are you doing all this for? What in the world? Who asked you for this? Who asked you for the Pentecostal Holiness Church or the Church of God that's headquarters in Tennessee? Who asked for all those? God didn't ask it. You see that? Who required this at your hand? Bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination unto me, the new moons and the Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies. I cannot away with it. It is iniquity, even the solemn feasts, your new moons, your appointed feasts. My soul hateth They are a trouble unto me, and I am weary to bear them. And when you spread your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you. Yea, when you make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. Wash you, make you clean. Put away the evil of your doings from before mine eyes cease to do evil. Now, tonight I want you to consider, is it possible that you have missed a few things? Let me ask you to consider, did you miss this? Now, if you're a young person, it's likely that you missed this particular event. Now, if you're a person who is in your 60s, oh, you knew about it. You see, it's likely this evening that if you're a young person in your 20s to your 30s or your 40s, if I were to say the word bikini, you would immediately think about a skimpy bathing suit. But you know what? A bikini was not originally a bathing suit. You know what a bikini was? Bikini was an island in the Pacific. An island that the United States swore to the whole world that they would take care of them. You know who were living on the island of Bikini? A group of people known as the Marshallese. They actually were given over, their lands were given over to the United States after World War II. We were actually in charge of protecting this country, the islands of the Marshall Islands, one of which was the Bikini. This French designer who came up with the bikini decided to name it a bikini because he said it was so hot, and everybody was reading about the bikini in the news. Here is what happened to bikini. I don't think there is any sound. Let me give you some context here tonight. How would you like it if someone exploded a bomb that was 1,000 times stronger than the bomb that we dropped on Hiroshima, on the Japanese? Now, I don't agree with Mr. Wright about Hiroshima. The Japanese were individuals who were going to destroy the world. I know people in these islands right here that the Japanese had under their control. They are still living, some of them. They remember the Japanese, and the Japanese were an atrocious people, and they were trying to rule the world. And we dropped a bomb on them to stop them. I'm not talking about that. I'm asking you tonight, how would you like it if this happened 70 miles from your house by individuals who had moved in 70 miles away as you drove? Let's say you're driving 70 miles away. We're talking about Raleigh, basically. You drive down to Raleigh and you see this big conglomeration coming up, and you begin to inquire, and what you find out is, well, you know, these people in Raleigh, they're here to protect us. They've come to the area to be our saviors. They're going to help us. They're going to right wrongs and build things, and really they're going to take over. Let's just say that the Japanese had been around and they were shooting bullets at us or whatever, whoever, and these people moved into Raleigh and they're going to take care of us. Well, what great, let's have them. And let's just suppose that they exploded this bomb just 70 miles away. Now, what you need to know about that cloud went 35 miles into the air. They actually exploded a whole island that belonged to these Marshallese. Bikini Atoll, in the middle of it, this explosion took place. And there were other islands 70 miles away. Now, this cloud went 35 miles into the sky. And when it started coming down, little children that are now grown that I know, some of their relatives, I know their relatives, They told me that their relatives saw this white stuff coming down onto their island, and the American servicemen who had been there during World War II told them about snow. We're talking about tropical islands. They'd never seen snow. But they saw it coming down and they said, well, lo and behold, the snow that the Americans told us about, it's here. And they stuck out their tongue and they let that ash fall on their tongue thinking it was snow. Fell in their eyes. They picked it up and tried to eat it just like we do snow, because see, that's what the servicemen told them about snow. And you know what it was? It was white death. That's what it was. Their saviors, their friends, the United States, had exploded this bomb just 70 miles away. And the wind blew it over to their island, and they are greatly victimized today. Now, what would you think? What do you think about this? Do you think, now just because you don't know this, folks, doesn't mean that the whole world doesn't know this. The whole world knows about this event. And so this is the kind of thing that I'm asking you tonight, are you aware of? Are you aware that that's what's taking place in the United States? And see, that's some of the stuff that this man is talking about. Now, while I don't agree with all of the things that he says, I don't even know what all he says, but I do know that all of a sudden the media has basically said everything he says is to be discounted because he has said some things about some conspiracy theories that are totally outrageous. Well, that may be the case. But folks, some of the stuff that he's saying that the media wants to get rid of right quick, some of this stuff actually took place. The stuff that he was talking about in Palestine, Jimmy Carter's written a book that says the same thing. Basically, Jimmy Carter has a book out. I've read the book, and you can get online and read the book. Now, here's the individuals that I'm talking to you about, the Marshallese. These are not like the American Indians who actually were warring enemies of the United States that now are complaining about the way they were treated. They were our enemies. American Indians were our enemies. They were killing, they were raiding, pillaging, destroying, regardless of what your philosophy is about we shouldn't have been on their land, blah, 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 whatever. Still yet, they were our enemies when we came here. These were never our enemies. These are the most gentle people that you will ever meet. They are the Marshallese people that were actually destroyed, were being taken into slavery by the Japanese, and we were awarded these countries as a protectorate. We were their protectors. And this is what the United States did to those islands. And it is still, today, it has never actually been told. The real story has not really been told. But see, this particular preacher, Mr. Wright, it could be that he read Bernice Powell Jackson. She's actually a member of the same church that he was in. And tonight I want to read some of this. I'm going to come down to another level so that we can actually read this in its entirety without me skipping to slides. So let's just go. It says, turning our back on the Marshall Islands again. And this particular lady's in the same church he's in. It's a denomination called the United Church of Christ. It has nothing to do with the Church of Christ that you read in the New Testament. This is a group of denominations, false religions that formed together back in the 1950s and named themselves the United Church of Christ. Listen to this. Last March 1st, I was in the Marshall Islands, tiny atoll, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, where commemorated the 50th anniversary of Bravo test. Let me just see if I can keep up with this. On March 1st, 1954, the United States dropped a 15 megaton hydrogen bomb, 1,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. It was one of the 67 nuclear weapons tests, let's see where we go with this, that was conducted, right here we are, that was conducted in the Marshall Islands by the U.S. between 1946 and 1958. But while many of the islanders had been evacuated in previous tests, on March 1st, the people of 4 tiny atolls were not. In fact, they were not evacuated until 4 days after the massive explosion whose radioactive cloud spread over an area about the size of New Jersey. While the story is horrible in and of itself, documents declassified during the Clinton administration appear to point to the decision by the Atomic Energy Commission to make the Marshall Islanders into human guinea pigs. And let me just see what happens when I go down this way. I think I can go down a little bit, move a little bit easier for us to read. It appears that there was an AEC project named Project 41 whose purpose was to study the effects of radioactive fallout on human beings. Despite its public statements otherwise, it seems that the AEC decided 3 days after the Bravo test to make the Marshall Islanders into research subjects. Now, let me go up. Here we are right here. It is unclear whether the Marshall Islands actually received medical treatments for the exposure to high levels of radiation or whether they just received tracers, which help researchers know how human beings were responding, but we do know that we have suffered extraordinarily high levels of cancer, particularly of the thyroid. Let me just keep moving up here. Moreover, here we are right here, moreover, the second and third generation also have high levels of cancer and immune system diseases. Women and girls who were originally exposed during the Bravo test also experienced high levels of stillbirth, miscarriage, deformities in their babies. The only thing I could think of was Nazi Germany, said then U.S. Energy Secretary Hazel O'Leary upon the first learning of these experiments when some documents were declassified. Did you hear that? This is the Secretary of U.S. Energy Secretary Hazel O'Leary said that the first thing she could think of was Hitler. Now, folks, did the media actually ostracize her and call her a nut because she said that? With the release of these documents in 1993, the survivors from Bravo tests petitioned the U.S. government for additional compensation to help pay for the health care and cleanup needs. Under a compact signed by the government of the U.S. and the Marshall Islands in 1983, the U.S. agreed to pay $150 million to a trust fund. Some additional funds were awarded to the specific groups of survivors, but while the commission managing the trust fund has awarded over $1 billion in damage claims, less than 1% of that money could be paid, and there are thousands of claims still pending. Shortly after the beginning of this year, however, the Bush administration rejected the petition for changed circumstances, telling the U.S. Congress that it should not award further to the Marshall Islands. The irony, of course, is the U.S. is telling other governments that they must take full responsibility for their actions when we refuse to take full responsibility for ours. Now, folks, basically the United States government has us in a war, and part of the reason why this war is going on is because the United States says that certain countries need to take full responsibility for their atrocities that they have committed on their own people. Folks, the Marshallese were in our protection. They had lived on those islands for hundreds of years. You can go there right now. I've been in those islands. I've lived in these islands. I've been to places in these islands where when I walked onto the island, into particular villages, the little kids cried like they had seen a monster or a ghost because they had never seen a white person. These individuals are basically in need of someone's care, and the United States was awarded them as they became our protectorate after the war. And this is basically what took place over there. And I'm not saying what it reminded me of. The Energy Secretary is the one who said it reminded her of Hitler. To make the whole people of the Marshall Islands, to make whole the people of the Marshall Islands, to treat their illness and to clean up their islands would take only a few days of the funds we are spending in Iraq and Afghanistan. This year, the survivors of Inuitak, Rongelap, Uterik, Bikini Island sponsored their own commemoration of Bravo tests by inviting survivors of Chernobyl nuclear reaction meltdown to share their experience. Now, folks, this is Russia. These folks are in Russia. Now, what I'm telling you is the whole world knows about the Marshall Islands. You may not know about the Marshall Islands because the media doesn't want to admit that America's ever done anything for which God would hold us responsible as individuals who are not caring for people in the world. Now, we do a lot of good things in the world. There's no doubt about that. But the fact of the matter is, folks, we can't live in a bubble and say that everybody who gets on television and says that the chickens are coming home to roost, in other words, we're paying for some of the stuff that we've done around the world, is necessarily a nut. The first thing you need to do is you need to research and not just let the news media tell you everything to think. Because these things have happened. They found that the government cover-ups and misinformation were common in both experiences. In other words, what they're saying is that the Russians and the Americans did the exact same thing in the same situations. More than half a century after one of the nation's most shameful actions, we must tell the truth, admit our guilt, and pay fully for our actions. Only if we can make amends to the people of the Marshall Islands can we move forward into the future with integrity and truth. Bernice Powell Jackson is Executive Minister of the Justice and Witness Ministry of the United Church of Christ on the national level. See, these folks are basically in the same church. Now, I believe this would be one of the reasons why that Jeremiah Wright would be saying some of the things that he is saying, because it could be the case that he's informed about some of the things that's going on. Ebi Atoll has an average today of approximately 66 acres. It is a very small island, and currently more than 14,000 people are crammed onto it. The sanitation conditions are poor. The supply of water is inadequate, and there is meager shade and shelter. As the population has grown, a causeway has been built to the northern link, to the north link, to other smaller islands. Now, folks, you know, you might be saying, well, Johnny, this really all sounds like a fabricated story. Well, if you think it's a fabricated story, what you need to do is you need to get in touch with me personally, and I'll show you the pictures, because that's where I lived. I lived on this island, which is called the slum of slums. It is one of the absolute worst places in the whole world. And the United States is actually responsible for this particular place. This is the resting place of all of those people who were displaced from all of those islands that the United States blew up back in the 1950s and the 1960s. They are real, and they are still suffering, and the United States is certainly not involved. You want to know what's next door? You want to know what is 500 yards away, half a mile, if even half a mile? In contrast, half a mile away, the living conditions on the American-controlled islands are described as being like living in paradise. Now, you see, I lived on the atoll of Ibai, and I could actually take a ferry 500 yards away, half a mile away, and I could stand behind a chain-link fence and see this. The Americans living in paradise. These are the islands where the U.S. military personnel and employees of giant corporations such as Boeing and Raytheon and their families are based and work. There is a 9-hole golf course there, scuba diving, tennis court, bowling greens for recreation, educational opportunities, are excellent medical care you wouldn't believe. Consumer goods are subsidized. They help these rich Americans pay for their light bulbs. And the latest movies are shown free of charge in open-air cinemas in the Marshallese half a mile away. They can hear it. They can hear this cinema going. Around 1,500 Marshallese work on these islands as cooks, cleaners, laborers, groundskeepers, maintenance staff. They're only permitted to be there during daylight hours, and they are not allowed to purchase goods from the subsidized shops. The cruelest treatment of any human being that I have ever imagined takes place on this island every single day by Americans just like us. They're gluttonous, have everything in the world, and are complaining about every single thing that you can think of. Their kids are wild, unkept, unrestrained. They're basically Americans, just like you see everywhere. And these Marshallese crammed together on 66 acres, 14,000 individuals crammed together on 66 acres. Most of the time, the water and the sewer only is actually working maybe every third day, or maybe every fourth day. A lot of times when you're basically away from your house and in the populated area here, and you have in a foreign country, like sometimes happens to you, you get a bug or a virus, it's bad. It's bad, folks. Water's not running. No place. It's just the most unbelievable place in the world. And you know, God is watching. God has never said America is His favorite place. He just hasn't said that. And so, folks, what I'm wanting you to know is this is reality. Here's a Marshallese home. This is something that basically the United States feels that they have done good for the Marshall Islands. This is a FEMA house in the Marshall Islands. This is basically what a house looks like in the Marshall Islands if it looks that good. I lived in a house much like this. Did some remodeling on it so that it was better off on the inside. But folks, these individuals have been done in ways that are just simply not described with any other word that I know, atrocious. They have been treated atrociously, and they were never our enemies. They always helped us in regard to getting rid of the Japanese. I knew individuals. This last year, I went back to the Marshall Islands and buried the son-in-law of a gentleman who is known as a scout. Many of the persons in this theater in the Marshall Islands, in the Pacific Islands, knew of him. He would actually go around when the United States was fighting the Japanese, and he would tell all the Marshallese people that the Americans were coming, and in the middle of the night, they would all get off of the Marshall Island, that particular island, and get out to a carrier, and then the Americans would bomb that particular island and kill all the Japanese. And he was a very well-known individual in the Marshall Islands. He obeyed the gospel, became a member of the Lord's church, and his son-in-law became a member of the Lord's church, and the government of the Marshall Islands was trying to take his inheritance, and so I went over and made sure that his inheritance went to his wife, And this is basically still going on, just last year. It is a very, very atrocious thing that is going on, and the United States is actually a part of it. Consumer goods, as we said, are subsidized for the Americans, and the Marshallese live in the worst squalor that you can basically imagine. And so, this is what's going on. These persons in America, the persons in our military, they dropped 5 million tons of TNT, 15 megatons, making it more than 1,000 times bigger than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Now, can you imagine someone doing that to a friendly nation, person that you're in charge of? This is an excerpt from the DOE Advisory Committee document on human radiation experiments finding 17, and it's actually some information about the Marshallese. Some Marshallese exposed during 1954 bomb tests received radiation doses substantially in excess of those considered safe both at that time and today. The U.S. government, initially the Navy and then the AEC and its successor agencies, has provided care to the Marshallese ever since for radiation-related illnesses while conducting research on this population to determine the radiation effects. Now, what we need to know is what else actually was going on at the same time. They were actually doing some of this research to find out what it was that happens to people when they're radiated. Is this what you do to your friends? And do we just pretend that it's not happening? And closer to home, have you ever stopped, folks, to consider how many abortions are taking place and what this has to do with anything? And I'm going to show you in just a minute how many abortions are performed in the United States each year. There are currently 1.3 million abortions performed each year in the United States. Here's the sources for that. You can actually look these up and check and get on the internet and check. 1.3 million babies are killed every year in the United States. In 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 1, I want you to notice this. We're talking about the political atmosphere that was going on in the time when we were reading a moment ago. You remember when we started our broadcast? We were talking the political time frame when Malachi was talking. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hosea, the son of Eli, to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. And this is very important. Ahaz is the king. Now watch this. Isaiah 1:1, Isaiah is the one who said a moment ago, "Who has asked you to bring these sacrifices before God? I don't want it away with you. Your hands are full of blood." Well, you see, Isaiah was actually a prophet during the reign of Ahaz. You see Ahaz right there? In 2 Kings chapter 17, Ahaz is the king. We're going to come back to 2 Kings 17. That's why this is so important. Isaiah is prophesying in the days of Ahaz. You know what was going on in the days of Ahaz? You know why God was saying, "I don't want to hear anything from you. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. I don't want any of your religious activities," because of the way your hands look. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire. They used divination and enchantments and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke Him to anger. Do you know, folks, today, every one of us, including me, my tax dollars are paying for the abortions that take place, many of the abortions that take place in the United States. We have abortion clinics that are federally funded. We all have blood on our hands. We are all involved in this. And we basically just sit idly by. We don't say or we don't do anything. And some crackpot like Reverend Wright steps up and he brings a little bit of this to our attention. The only problem is Mr. Wright actually went into too many conspiracy theories, but some of the things that he actually brought up, folks, they are actually going on. We are a nation that is involved in a lot of bad things. You may not want to hear that, but you know what? Sometimes we have to face reality. And you know, when Isaiah was speaking, they didn't want to hear from Isaiah. As a matter of fact, they put Jeremiah in prison. It was actually worse. The hour was actually later in the days of Jeremiah. The Babylonians were right there on the brink. They were right coming into town, and they still didn't want to hear it, and Jeremiah was put in prison. Now, Isaiah is a little bit before Jeremiah. The political time frame is not quite as late. I wonder where we are today. And I wonder today if it isn't the case that there will never be anybody in the United States that wants to hear that God could be passing judgment on us right now. I am trying with everything in me to figure out a way to get people to come to their senses. You know, as we actually are discussing this thing right now to our to our south. There, if you've been watching the activities that take place on this station, you've been seeing some of the things that are going on down in Reidsville. Let me see if I can pull this up right quick. And I want to show you what's been taking place down in Reidsville. We're actually now, our neighbors, now you know a lot of times people don't consider the fact that our neighbors, that we're responsible for our neighbors, but right down the road from us, do you know what's taking place? We're actually involved in a battle having to do with liquor. Madison, North Carolina is actually voting, I believe May the 6th, could be June, no, I believe it's May the 6th, they're voting on whether or not to bring in liquor by the drink. And what that basically means is they already have a moonshine company right there in Madison. I went by and viewed it yesterday, I believe it was. Yesterday was Tuesday, maybe it was Monday, when I went down there and looked at it just to see if I was reading this right. Our neighbors just to the south, they're actually voting on whether or not to bring Applebee's into their area, and some of the persons, some of them right here on this station, are saying, oh man, that's going to be good for our society, it's going to be good for our economy. We have Applebee's here in Martinsville. Not only do we have Applebee's, we've got Texas Steakhouse, we've got any number of liquor by the drink places, and is it really helping our economy? You know, we're actually involved in a situation where this is all going on and nobody really says anything about it. I think I actually have a clip, if I can get this clip up for you. And I just thought about this, so you bear with me, and I hope it's not too unprofessional for you to go through this, but I actually have a clip of a lady down there in Madison, Mayodan, who is weighing in on the religious people in the area, and she basically can't understand why religious people are so upset. And you know, I kind of tend to agree with her based on what I heard her say. And just hold on just a minute, and we'll look at this, and we'll just see, you know, if it's the case that there's any reason why God shouldn't deal with us in the way that it seems that He's dealing with us. Hold on just a minute. I think I remember from the other night that it wasn't liquor 2, it was liquor 1. Here we go. Let's try this. Oh, here it is.
Get on the roads and drive, but they think there's a problem with serving it in a restaurant where it's controlled, a waitress and a... Go and sit down there and eat.
Yes, she said she would go to Greensboro to go to Applebee's.
Go and sit down there and eat.
Yes, she said she would...
Oh, against it.
Yeah, I had a call like that last week. She
Why
said...
do they go and sit down there and eat?
Yes, she said she would go to Greensboro to go to Applebee's.
But we'll sit down in one of those restaurants and eat. People who are against it, but will sit down. I also don't understand the mentality of the people who are against it, but will sit down in one of those restaurants and eat. If they're so against it.
Yeah, I had a call like that last week. She said...
Why do they go and sit down there and eat?
Now, did you hear that call, and do you understand the implications of that call? She said she can't understand why all the so-called Christian people who are against all of the sale of alcohol will go and sit down in Applebee's. And folks, in Martinsville, it's not only sitting down. You actually have the leading neighborhood network. You get on their website now, and they're talking about their great integrity and honesty and how good it is for our community. They actually advertise that you go in and sit down and subsidize one of these places that is selling alcohol. And you know what we need to realize is I don't think we've actually taken into account the statistics. Do you know that in North Carolina, you actually only have to sell 30% food in Applebee's? If you're in Applebee's in North Carolina, all you have to sell is 30% food in order to maintain a liquor license. You can sell 70% liquor. Well, what does that mean? What's actually happening? Well, what it means is the owner can take a $15 bottle of liquor, and he can actually make $100 out of it. Now, is that good for our economy? Let's open up the phone lines and see if our community wants to weigh in on this, or if you have considered some of the things that we're saying tonight. So really, what we're actually doing, and you may not have seen some of this when we were in Reidsville this past Sunday, what we're actually doing is, in order for these companies like Applebee's and what have you to make money, all of us have to be intoxicated. You know what's the Bible say?
Johnny, I've been wondering about this myself, if God hasn't
started taking control of what's going on and punishing us for what we're doing.
Well, it's a good thing to think about it. That's a good thing to think about. We appreciate you for calling.
Appreciate you.
All right, now folks, this is what we actually need to be thinking about. This is Isaiah. This is what Isaiah actually said, was saying in regard to what they were doing in those days. When they were killing their babies, look what God said. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. That's what happened to the people of Israel. You're hearing what the Bible say?
Yeah.
Yes, caller?
I got a question.
All right.
Once we saved and baptized and we become...
Sir, you said that just backwards. Saved and baptized is false doctrine. You're not saved and baptized according to the Bible. But you can go ahead. I just can't let that part go. But you go ahead now. You still with me? All right. Did we just lose him, or he's still there, or what? Okay, now, you see what wants to happen, folks, is on this broadcast, we just can't go saved and then baptized. Let's get it right. Mark 15:16. Let's make sure it's still there.
No, he's not there. We got two notes.
Okay, hold on just a second. Let me make sure I get this up, because I want to make sure that we have these individuals clear on what's being said. What in the world? Mark 16. Y'all just hold on one second. We'll make sure we get this up, because we don't want anybody to think that we mistreated that gentleman. Here's what the Bible says. He said when we're saved and baptized. No, the Bible says when we're baptized, then it says you're saved. Jesus said, he that believeth and is baptized shall be saved. It's believe plus baptism plus equals salvation. It's not the other way around. All right, John, what's the Bible say?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
What you were saying about the drinking and stuff,
Yes.
I was wondering what the big deal is about it. I mean, us as responsible people, just because it's there don't mean you have to partake in it.
Okay, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
All right, sir. Easy access means that more individuals in your family take the chance of being right here. Are you sure that one of your brothers or sisters or children, as a result of the easy access, making liquor just as easy, just like porn? We have an epidemic of individuals that are involved in pornography today. Can't even let your baby children, your little children, go to the bathroom by themselves. How did that happen? Because of the access to the evil. The easier the access is, the more individuals become like this. Are you sure that, could this be you? Are you there, sir?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, so you're saying that as a result of all these people, all this alcohol coming in to easy access, that there's no real danger that any one of us is going to become like that. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's not just Texas Steakhouse and Applebee's. I mean, they got it at Roma's, China Buffet.
Okay, I'm glad you're bringing them up. Yes, sir, let's bring them up. Who'd you say?
All these places.
That's
They're all
right.
up and down the avenue.
All right, the Mexican place, Mi Ranchito. What's the other one? El Ranchito. What's the one beside Food Line?
Pizza Hut, Roma's.
What, Roma's? All of them. And sir, look at the statistics in Russia now. Average Russian consumes almost 3 times as much alcohol as he did 16 years ago. You see, this is where we're headed, sir. The more access. Now, can you just at least agree or disagree with me on this? In order for these folks to make money, isn't it the case that we all need to be intoxicated?
Well, I think a person should be responsible.
Well, sir, we're not talking about what you should be. We're talking about the real world here. You know, I heard a lady call in and talk to Charles, and she said that bartenders and waitress will make sure that you don't drink over the limit before you go out and drive. You know, that
You have to eat. You can't just sit in there and drink.
Oh, yes, you can, sir. Where in the world do you wake up from? Have you been to a bar lately? Have you been to Applebee's lately? Who in the world said you can't just sit in there and drink?
Well, that's the way I've always heard it.
Well, sir, you need to go down and check the
I think you have
statistics.
to drink with your meal.
No, sir. They have a bar in there. And their slogan is a bar in every community. You want a bar across from your house? How about that? Would you like to have a bar across from your house?
No.
Well, sir, you go in Applebee's and you stay late, and I guarantee you it's not a place that you would want your children to be in the late hours. They have arguments in there. They have people that act up. And when people start drinking alcohol, they start acting irresponsible because that's what alcohol does. And here's my point. In order for them to make $8 million each year in tax revenue, what it means is all of us need to be intoxicated. That's how this circle works. They sell more liquor and they make more money. Now, does that sound like they're wanting you to be responsible, or they really want you to get with it?
No, they're just taking advantage of the weak-minded people.
They're taking advantage. It doesn't matter, sir. All they want is that $15 bottle of liquor to turn into $100, and they don't care how they do it. You know that's the way money is, don't you? That's why we have porn everywhere. Do you know our city council, when I was doing programs against the city buying Adelphia, the city council said because porn is everywhere, it must be legal. Now, can we use that argument on drugs? Drugs are everywhere. Do you think the city council would say it must be legal?
No.
But see, because of money, sir. They were wanting to make money for Martinsville by owning that cable station, and they didn't care that the worst, unbelievable porn is up on the high channels. And actually, our city was going to be responsible for giving that. Well, you know who's responsible for the liquor in Martinsville, Henry County, in Virginia?
No, who?
Right here, ABC. That's the government. The government of Virginia is in the alcohol business. And in order for them to make $8 million in Virginia like they did in North Carolina, you know what, sir? They want everybody to be intoxicated. The more you buy, the more tax revenue, and it doesn't help our schools and our hospitals. It makes us all irresponsible. Brings about deaths, tragedies in homes. You ever know anybody who was an alcoholic?
Yes.
I do too, sir. And that's what I'm saying. Easy access means that, you know, persons who didn't really intend to be this way, who in my family is going to end up being like Nick Nolte or Glenn Campbell, or you remember who was the other guy that's dead now that we had his famous mugshot? Brown, James Brown. Remember the mugshot of James Brown? He had the hairdo going on about like Nick Nolte when they arrested him. That's what's happening. Did we help any tonight, sir?
Yeah,
All right,
appreciate your time.
All right, appreciate you calling. What's our time tonight? Are we?
You're at 56 minutes.
All right, let's take another call here. You know what's the Bible say?
Hello.
Yes, caller.
Looks like we got two kinds of bar exams here.
What's that mean?
That means we're classing people. We got these people that are supposedly weak-minded going into one bar, and they examine you as you go out the door to see if you're able to drive. And then they got another bar up there in Richmond somewhere. They have all kinds of powers up there, but you have to study all and work on it. Bar exams are the laws. You know, there's so many laws, and God has laws.
All right. What's your point? I don't know if I'm getting it. You go ahead.
I'm missing it, but I'm working with little fragments of thought thanks to some of that life out there. And I'd like to say I'm sorry that I'm not I can't cover up every little thing. It's China suffered from under Japan too. And
so what's your point, sir? You're kind of going all over the
sorry.
place.
I'll talk some other time. Right now, I got fragments.
Okay. All right. Appreciate you calling. All right. You know what the Bible say?
Hey,
Hey,
do you shop or go anywhere to sell alcohol?
do I shop or anywhere they have alcohol? I do shop at Walmart.
Well, I mean, if you believe in what the Bible saying, you so against it, look like me, you go where they don't sell it.
Well, sir, in today's world, I don't know a place where they don't sell it. Now, here's my point, but here's a point. There are degrees of ungodliness that when I'm in a world where ungodliness is everywhere, it is the case that the Apostle Paul said you can't go completely out of the world, but you can stand up against the very, very worst accounts of sin. So can we tonight establish, do you have any children? Did you raise children?
Yeah, I got children, grandkids too.
Okay. Would you be okay with your grandchildren going into Walmart at 11 o'clock at night, let's say with your wife?
If they're grown, they can do what they want to
Okay,
do.
no, I'm saying, let's say the little grandchildren, would you be okay with letting them go to Walmart at 11 o'clock at night with your wife, the little ones?
If they up and she with them, yeah,
Okay,
be all right with me.
all right. Would you be okay with them going in Hurley's at 11 o'clock at night?
No, you gotta have
Okay.
certain respect for your kids. You know, kids
Okay.
ain't supposed to be out that time of night.
All right, thank you, sir. You made my point. There are certain places.
No, but you were saying that, like they was talking about getting alcohol in Reedsville or either down in Madison, what they talking about, that if people go in there and eat and they're selling alcohol in there,
Sir, do you know the difference between a
I
bar?
don't see nothing wrong with it.
Okay, sir, maybe you don't, but I think you just said a moment ago that you wouldn't want your wife and your little grandchildren going into a bar at 11 o'clock at night, but you don't have a problem with them going into Walmart. So evidently you've got the same problem I do, but you just won't admit it.
You know good and well that you
Sir.
got to be a certain age to go into a bar.
Sir,
So that question you
sir,
asked about
no,
kids,
you don't have to be a certain age to go into Hurley's or Applebee's at 11 o'clock at night. If your wife is with them, you do not have to be a certain age.
But you know good and well, man, ain't no parents supposed to be carrying no kids at that time.
Okay, you are making my point. Thank you. You can see the difference
Why-
between
okay,
a bar and
Why is it
Walmart.
right for you going to the grocery store? Why is it right for you going to the grocery store?
Okay, why would you not let your grandchildren go into a bar at Hurley's or Applebee's at 11 o'clock at night, but you will let them go in the grocery store?
Hey.
See, sir, you see the point, but you just won't admit it tonight. You've
I'm
already
asking
said
you a
it.
question.
No, I'm just asking you. Did you not say that? Did you not say that you
Yeah, I
wouldn't?
answered your question. Yeah.
Yes, what?
I answered your question, what you asked me.
I said, yes, what? There's a difference between Hurley's and Applebee's at 11 o'clock at night and Walmart. Did you say yes?
Yeah, they got different atmosphere, yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying is that one atmosphere can be so bad that you would be against it, but yet alcohol's being sold in both places, but one place they're actually opening it up and they're getting drunk. And if we live in a world where everywhere you go, it's there. You can't get out of the world. You see this? That's what Paul's saying. You can't get out of the world, but that doesn't mean that you can't oppose what's going on.
Hey.
Okay. Now, sir, you called, look, sir, look at your watch. You called right at the last hour. You see your watch?
Well, okay, I'll call you again next
Okay,
time.
call me early because I like talking with you.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
thanks for the call. All right, now, friends, I think that was a great call. The individual actually let us know that he did see the difference between a place where alcohol is being imbibed versus a place where alcohol is being sold. I wish that neither one of them didn't exist, but there are degrees of evil. Just like Blockbuster is different than Brewers. Blockbuster sells R-rated movies where you get brief nudity. Brewers sells XXX. Is there not a difference between XXX? Would you let your children go behind the curtain at Brewers? Folks, we're out of time. We always ask for what does the Bible say? If you want to get in touch with us, this is the way you can, by writing. If you want to meet with us, here's where we are, 823 Starling Avenue. God bless you. Good night.